Okay, we're gonna try this again because apparently I can talk for a very long time. So, the hippocampus, this is how I remember it, and this is one of my favorite ways to remember it. And this is part of the reason why it's one of my favorite brain parts. Um, I think of it as a hippo plus a camp site, and that equals the seahorse. This is very weird, but it's how I remember it. We have Fiona the hippo at the Cincinnati Zoo, something that helps me remember it because anything to do with animals helps me with my memory, which is what the hippocampus is used for. And a lot of, or not solely for memory, but for a lot of it. So hippocamp, and then because I used to work at the Newport Aquarium, seahorses and things were kind of my favorite thing to, well, all of the animals there were my favorite, but it's something that helps me remember it. And this is a picture of one of the big-bellied seahorses, which we were part of the conservation program for. So trigger warning and cute animals. There are icky things on the next slide as a forewarning, and these are the cute photos to make up for the icky things. Kizzy's being a birdie ice cream cone, Query's eating a wallet, and then they're both wet chickens. Um, so this is what the hippocampus actually does look like. And this is why it looks like a seahorse, because there's a seahorse right next to it, and any connection to animals helps my memory of things, which is what makes it part of my favorite brain part. Um, so the hippocampus, the top image on the far right is of a human brain and where we put the hippocampus. And then the bottom is a picture of a bird's brain and where the hippocampus is located in that. The hippocampus is related to memory consolidation, long-term memories, so moving short-term memories that happen the day into long-term memories, which is a more permanent type of storage, and some emotional responses. It also helps in spatial memory. In birds, the spatial relations that it helps with are related to food sources and flight, and humans, we're talking walking, moving around our environment, and that type of thing. It is located in, the temporal lobe in both hemispheres of the brain. So to me, you don't have one hippocampus, you have two hippocampi because there are two of them. I feel like that was not mentioned as well as I thought it could have in the textbook. The hippocampus is part of the limbic system, and I found several studies that were able to link obsessive compulsive personality disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder to a decreased volume in the hippocampus. And then for generalized anxiety disorder, there was an increased volume in the hippocampus. And I still find it fascinating that we can figure out the volume of the hippocampus without sticking it in a jar of water because of the brain imaging techniques that we now have access to. Um, so that's something that I find because I know a lot of people with those. I know a lot of people with those, and people around me have those disorders, so it makes it interesting to see how that's related to one of my favorite things in the brain. Um, so moving on, it is also strongly connected to the amygdala, which is our fear center and all of the fun stuff to do with that. And the locus coeruleus connects to the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the forebrain, and that releases norepinephrine, which also helps memories move to long-term storage. So long-term storage versus, so like I made a recipe today. I made a new recipe. It goes into my short-term memory because I'm making it at the time when I go to sleep tonight. The hippocampus is going to help consolidate that memory, and because I was stressed out at work today because we've had a lot going on lately, likely my norepinephrine levels and cortisol levels were very high, which means I am more likely to remember that recipe compared to a day when it's relaxed and a little less stressful. Um, the amygdala and hippocampus are also part of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So the amygdala sends messengers to release the corticotropin releasing hormone from the in the hypothalamus, and then the hippocampus stops the release of that hormone when it's reached whatever level it needs to because of the receptors that the hippocampus has access to on its surface. And it can track the level of cortisol and other glucocorticoid, the other stress hormones. I can't say that word, and I'm struggling with it, and I'm blaming it on the fact that I'm probably getting a migraine, which is also related to different brain areas. And this helps make a feedback loop about the amount that's released in the brain and when to put a stop to releasing the cortisol, because too much cortisol over a long period of time can do significant damage to your body. There are studies that show that, and I know a lot of professors have mentioned that previously. And the cortisol is what helps us deal with stressors. It makes our body use energy more efficiently and a couple of other things. I would also be remiss to not mention several patients that have helped science and psychology and neuropsychology and things so much with their contributions that were by accident. Um, HM, known as Henry Mollison, known as HM previously to protect his identity because of valid concerns of him being, I don't want to say attacked by reporters, kind of sort of. Everybody would want to know different things about him, and that would be no way to live your life, just kind of like a celebrity. They chose to do that. Henry would not have. Or at least not necessarily, and with what was going on in his brain, I'm still wondering about how they got consent that would last that long when he didn't have a long-term memory, and I need to Google that when I get done with this. Um, so, sorry. He had a bilateral medial temporal resection where they took out the hippocampus and the temporal lobe on both sides of his brain to help with seizures. Um, After the surgery, they found out he is unable to form long-term memories, but the ones from his childhood were intact, which would make no sense if the hippocampus was solely the owner of all of our memories. So other memories that are longer than long-term memories, that are older than that, have to be stored someplace else in the brain, which was a very important discovery. Clive Waring also had damage to his hippocampus from a virus. I think it was encephalitis, which is a swelling of the brain. Um, he's also unable to form new long-term memories, which all of these people, Kent Cochrane was somebody I found off of Wikipedia, so take that as you will. Because I was Googling to get better information on these people that was not in our textbook and stuff, or not just from our textbook, that they all had damage to their hippocampus, hippocampi, or one or the other. It did a lot to their long-term memory, but we were also able to figure out other things based on that. So, um, like Henry Mollison was able to still learn procedural memory and physical tasks, so drawing tasks, if he did them over and over and over again over a period of several days. His improvement in the physicality of the task would improve even though he'd have no memory of doing the task previously. And I put the references down there that I got the information from for these guys. And then this is the references for the rest of the stuff that was in the presentation. I think I covered everything that I need to cover, and if it doesn't make sense, anything connected to animals makes me happy. So this one was the one that was most connected to animals. I could have done the language ones, but I like the hippocampus and the seahorse better. So thank you guys for listening to my rant, and I will go ahead and turn this in. Talk to you later. Bye.